Idaho.
To it. It has been a while. It has been a while. I would like to say it's not my fault, but I'll take extreme ownership for it.
It's all your fault.
All my faults. This is APX, back with a fresh interview where, with our guest in mind, we're going to help you refine and just subtly fine-tune your mindset so that you can become an unbreakable mind, an unstoppable force, an untamed spirit, and in so many words, become your very own army of one. That is basically what the apex predator is about, your mind. Everything happens in here. Across from me is a good friend of mine. He did my previous show before HAC, but before I introduce him, allow me to verbal process because this is going to set the tone for the conversation. Former Lieutenant Commander Jocko Willink, former United States Navy SEAL, summarized the following impeccably. The keys to leadership are humility, humility, and humility. Why? Because it is the keys to the four words which forms the essence, the measure of a man: strength, mastery, courage, and honor. The four pillars, which I'd like to think formed very much from a philosophical standpoint, the four pillars of combat, which was exemplified in extreme ownership by Lieutenant Commander Willink, but even formed the cruxes of what is Stoic philosophy, which was formularized by Zeno the prophet, passed on to Cleanthes, and as we further on in the tale go chronologically, was popularized by Marcus Aurelius in the book Meditations. Yeah. But in so many words as well, if you are in recovery, whether you are in recovery or a normie, should I exemplify, bad things are going to happen to you. Okay? It's going to happen. But that's why we are humbled. Because in the essence of that, we take life lessons from that from which we mold our character. And it is important, and I'd like to think especially more so for a man who is built for pain and extremity, that we take a lot more life lessons and take in a lot more experiences in order that we can mold in a more efficient character for ourselves, for our community, for our families. And that is something which Beau Payne has done to the full. To give you some highlights about the man, former Marlins draft pick, athlete, a voracious defender of the nation as an army infantryman, motivational speaker, author with his book Pain to Purpose, and also a podcast host with the immensely popular Beau Payne Show. Some of the names which he has featured is a rogues gallery. Quite recently, Jenny Bunton, well known. Other names may include Tony Mandarich, Jason Zimmerman, Nadine Gant, Randy Grimes, and a whole lot more. I'm proud to call him a friend of mine. He stood by me in so many ways more than none, and a super, super guy. And I hope really from this conversation you're going to take a lot out of a page or two from out of his book and apply it to your own. Beau Payne, welcome, Bubba.
Man, thank you for that introduction, Chris. I'm not sure it was warranted, but I sure appreciate it. I felt like when I blamed you for it'd been an extended hiatus since we've talked, like any self-respecting alcoholic and addict, pointing the finger at you and not me. No,
I'll take the blame.
I'm just kidding. It's reciprocal. I'm thrilled to be back on your show, on the new show, and I know we're going to have a great conversation. So thank you so much for that great, wonderful introduction.
Let's jump off right from something that you've said. If you look at your life now, from where you were originally in the doldrums to your current eminence, Greece, you've written a book, you now have your own show, and you started your own recovery business. You really must now be at a point where you're pinching yourself, aren't you?
I'm grateful. People ask me how I'm doing sometimes, and I say that I'm blessed probably more than I deserve. So I do pinch myself sometimes, but I do realize that recovery and the foundation of which my life has been built upon can fall instantaneously if I'm not vigilant about my life on a day by day
Mm,
basis. So do I pinch myself? Yes. Do I am I grateful? Yes. I think I'm happier more with the relationships that I have in my life now with my children, my mother, my sister, my friends, a couple of the few employees that I have that I employ, just people like that. Is Yeah, it's a pretty neat life, absolutely, from where I did come from.
let's take it a little bit back. You had a relapse
I
not so
did.
long ago in 2022, and then eventually, what led you to go back to rehab for a second time?
That was a tough time in my life. That was the lowest period of my entire life, and I've hit some astronomical lows over the years. You know, several years in jail, several years in prison, things like that. So I had been sober over 6 years, Chris, almost 7 years, I believe. I don't know the exact number,
Fair
and
dinkum?
I thought it would be a good idea to take a few pain pills because I had a few left over from several shoulder surgeries that I've had over the years. Never, in hindsight, should they have been left over and sitting in my medicine cabinet, even though they went untouched for about 2 years. And I got hit on my bike one day, and and then I got COVID. I realized I had COVID for the third time, and just things kind of spiraled.
Oh,
And I made a
man.
joke about, pointing the finger at you for not, at the beginning of this. But but on a more serious note, I justified those pain pills. I'm like, well, I hurt and I got because I'm a fitness guy and I love riding my bike. And then I'm like, oh, and I have COVID. And pretty soon it went from not doing the things in recovery that had made me successful to woe is me to a few pills would make me feel a little bit better. I woke up the next morning, Chris, and all I could think about was getting drunk.
No
And
kidding.
I lived right downtown in the heart of the city in a little in a medium high rise building, had a real nice apartment, and just was doing really well and happy. But I ended up getting drunk all day that day. And then that evening I was doing drugs. And then 4.5 months later, almost 5 months later, for the second time, I was laying dead, overdosed on fentanyl in a little $40 a night flea bag motel room up by the local airport. And luckily, there was Narcan, and I was able to get to the hospital and get saved. And I went down to Texas, had some just angels on my behalf, some very loving and benevolent people who helped me dearly. And I came back and just been putting the pieces back together and then some. And so I've kind of crossed that threshold to where I'm just clicking on all cylinders again. And I'm just grateful to God and don't want to sound cliche-ish, but I'm so grateful that all that stuff happened because I don't think that I would have known who I was, maybe the strength that I really did have, or the intestinal fortitude that I really did carry. I was just kind of rolling along at the end of my recovery and not doing the things that had made me or had helped me stay clean and sober. So I definitely took a lot of lessons from it. Came back and just hit the ground running, and just said, hey, this is me. I mean, you know me, Chris. I've always been, transparent with my life, the good, the bad, and the ugly on my social medias, my interpersonal, relationships with people. Say, man, I'm struggling, or I'm doing great, or this is what happened. And I found out that I had a lot of people that were in my corner, man, and it was nice and gave me a lot of inspiration to keep doing better. So branched out into a little bit of some entrepreneur stuff and um,
Mm, mm.
own my own company, the Beau Payne Group, and that's it involves book writing and speaking and my recovery coaching business and a few other things, my podcast. So yeah, life is good, man. I just like you. I just love people who have kind of walked through the flames and come out the other side forged or walk through the fire and become forged in the flames. So
I love that wording, and I really love that wording, and I relate to you on so many levels with what you have just mentioned. What I'm going to say is going to sound selfish for some people who may not understand, but it is truly so. It is only when you are in the real doldrums, in the dark place, that you really discover who you are. You and I were talking off air about money can buy anything: a new
yes,
car, new house, new dog, new wife, if
Yeah.
you want to
Yeah.
separate, that's fine.
Yeah, true.
But it can't buy your life back. And
No.
when you lose a life, especially your life, you take a whole bunch of people with you. And I think in your respect as well, also having mentioned this off air, it does a complete 360, not just a complete 180, and flips your current thinking on its head. Because you might be thinking to yourself, you know what, I just came back from this. I've done so wrong. I screwed up. Now you have done the work and you still are continuing to do the work. And now these blessings come upon you. It's almost like you want to ask yourself, why me? Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, you're right in a sense. I asked. I never really was a why me and a negative guy because I always did take responsibility for the things that I did. I would get down on myself like why I would say why again? Why are you doing this to yourself again? Because I knew that I was just burning myself to the ground bit by bit by bit, death by a million paper cuts. Um, you know but eventually you have enough paper cuts, everything is burnt, everything just is bloody everywhere. I felt really I mean that's just the way it is, but I felt really bad. I said, why my children again? Why did I put my family through this again? Why did I, why? And then I started, and it became that perpetual cycle of of shame and guilt and things like that. And so I would feel so horrible about myself, and then I would just go to the bottle again and the drugs, and then in the addictive nature of alcoholism and drug addiction, I could not stop.
Mm,
I was at my
mm.
lowest. I was drinking every day. I was shooting methamphetamine in my arm every day, and then smoking fentanyl blue pills in the evening. I was doing that for months, and it went past the whole "why is me" to how do I survive on a day by day basis to get
Yeah,
that thing. Does
yeah,
that make sense? Like I
absolutely,
was never
absolutely.
really a blame other guy. Like I was never a guy that said, you would drink if you had my life, or I took responsibility, I guess.
No, you
Um,
did take responsibility. That's actually why I said, why me? Because now look where you are from then until now, having your own business. Not so long after you have done the work again, your mindset's completely changed.
yeah,
It's more of a fact of, is this me? Is this me? Like
sure.
literally with all this
I see
blessing?
what you're saying. Okay, I misunderstood. Yeah, so
No, not at
now,
all. I love that the context what you mentioned.
yeah, but now you make a great point, because now I'm just like, hey, this is great. I mean, but I look at it like, why not me? I work hard.
Ah, there we go.
And I put in I value relationships more than anything on this planet.
And you can see it. You can see it.
Yeah.
I mean, when your grandson was born, I
Oh
see
boy,
that you literally shower that little guy with love.
yeah, he's everything to me. I'm gonna go see him later today in the afternoon.
And it
That's
takes a
everything.
man to admit.
Yeah,
It takes a
thank
man
you.
to admit that we
And
screwed up,
that's
and
everything
that
that
you're
I
actually
need.
doing everything to
Yeah.
heal that. Man,
Well, I told my daughter the other day, I said, I feel like, I said, thank you for welcoming me back into the fold of this family, because I feel like I get a do over again. And my grandson is my blood. And he's probably the only one in my family that never has to see me intoxicated or high or anything like that ever again. He's never seen it. He can just know his granddad as somebody who helps him with sports and loves him and dotes on him, and how grandfathers are supposed to be. And so I just it's been the greatest thing of my life, to be honest with you, to be a grandfather.
mm, mm. You mentioned something, and it serves as a perfect segue. You have a background in sports. You were a draft pick for the Florida Marlins. Was sports always something that you were interested in from young?
Yes, so sports were my getaway. Like a little bit about my background, and I had a lot of really really insane abuse starting from a very young age 4 and 5, and so sports were always kind of an escape or a getaway for me. I just happened to be a good athlete growing up. I played baseball, football, basketball, hockey, soccer, we call in the US, obviously, football, and just interested in everything. And baseball was my main sport. And
You're
I was,
prolific in your knowledge of the sport, I must add.
Oh, I sports are everything to me. Besides recovery and my family, sports probably are a close number two. You know, I'm a huge fan of the English Premiership, and I have been since
Hmm.
a little kid. I love American soccer, world football. I'm a big Chelsea supporter. I used to support Spurs as a young kid, but that
Tottenham
was just
Spurs,
that
yeah.
was just because my father made me. But my father, I haven't spoken.
and
But yeah,
and you got to
baseball
admit,
just yeah. Go ahead.
Alex Ferguson was the
Yeah,
best manager.
he was pretty
There
great.
will there will never be another like him.
I think Sir Alex, and of course, I was never a United fan. Being a Chelsea fan, a Chelsea supporter. But I love. He's a Scotsman, which you gotta love Scots. Scotsman, great, great.
I'm Gaelic. I'm not
There
going to
you
deny
go,
it. It's,
man.
it's my clan.
And I loved, and like we talked about Dr. Rob Kelly, and he talked a little bit about Roy Keane, and he's an Irish,
Oh
really
yeah,
tough guy. So, um, yeah, either him or my guy was Jose Mourinho, who's my favorite gaffer. But
very humble guy off
yeah,
the field, but aggressive on the field.
and then Pep Guardiola, I mean, he's fantastic, but I think that Alex Ferguson's probably the gold standard. So, um,
Very much.
but my baseball
You
guy.
said a
Oh, go ahead.
yardstick for soccer. No, all
Oh
I
yeah, of
was saying
course.
was you said a yardstick for soccer. You know, here in South Africa, we had names like Stuart Baxter, who had originally come from the UK, but he tried to take the national team and bring them up to international standards. If he succeeded, it took him 5 tries to get it
Yeah,
right
yeah,
because he
yeah.
would have a season, get fired, then get hired again, try again,
I
get
mean,
fired again, rehired
yeah.
the next season.
I mean, there's been throughout the history of, I'll just say the continent of Africa. I mean, there's been fantastic players, Eto, Drogba, Roger Mila,
Roger Mila, uh,
and just Michael Essien. I mean, just on and on and on. Just fantastic
Lucas
players through.
Radebe.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I've always loved soccer. I've always loved sports, Olympic sports, world sports. Not just insulated in the United States, our sports over here. But baseball is my sport, and I love it. I grew up with it. I consider it my religion. I was very good at it. I was drafted by a couple Major League Baseball teams, the Florida Marlins, Milwaukee Brewers. I was a big billing type of guy. Sorry, my desk is shaking here a little
Carry
bit.
on, carry on.
um, but I just didn't. I was trying to juxtapose a life, Chris, of keeping up with the Joneses. The Joneses meaning drugs and alcohol, to escape from the violence in my life, to becoming the best player that I could be. And I never gave myself a proper shot at it because I was always drunk or high, or I had no confidence to play sports, athletics at a high level. You need extreme confidence, borderline arrogance. I think arrogance is a horrible quality in people, but in sports, it's not a horrible quality. Sports,
Oh,
the best of the best athletes are pretty damn arrogant on the field, or the
absolutely.
pitch, or the court, or the arena. Off the playing surface, or what have you. You don't need to be arrogant, But
No.
so I just didn't ever give myself a chance. I think sports were robbed of me as a young child because of everything that I endured as a kid, all the abuse and the sexual, the emotional, the physical, and all that stuff. And it's all detailed. And I've done a lot of work on myself and gotten over that, and talk a lot about it when I speak and write, and
And you
just
speak
love.
openly, which I
Yeah,
love about you as a person.
yeah. With me, boy, there's nothing holding back. But I found that that's the best way for my message to reach other men who have gone through the same things that I've gone through, that are reluctant, embarrassed, hesitant to talk about that kind of stuff. So, about breaking stigmas.
Can I be honest with you? If it wasn't for
Yes,
you, I wouldn't be a runner today.
really.
I promise.
Gosh, that.
I never said this to you. When I was fired from my radio job, I was really in the doldrums, and you know how we men are. We tend to internalize everything until the pot boils over. And you had a motivational that you had just posted that morning. I was a physical guy myself, but I really never excelled in sports as much. I played rugby, which is
Sure.
uh, an, an English sport that came from England to South Africa. Ireland played here. We had great English players as well. John Robbie is one particular well-known player
It's a
who played
wonderful
for the Brit
sport. Tough sport
and
too.
very much, until I dislocated my knee and I had a little bit of a wobble. Then I switched rugby to chess, more from a physical to a mental. Then I did jiu-jitsu for a time,
Mm.
but I was an overweight, pudgy kid, so I never gravitated much to sport as a youngster. And in this given period, which was a very dark period in my life, you had this motivational, and you were talking about physical exercise and how it helps with mental health.
Yes.
And I just decided to start taking up running. And it started small and gradually expanded for a year up until I ran my first marathon. And I have that for you. I have you to thank for that, my friend.
I am honored. That makes me feel fantastic because and can I tell you a little bit about how my mindset changed as far as, because I suffered like a lot of people do with horrible anxiety as a child and then as a teenager, then as a excuse me, as a man, I shook all the time and I
As
was
did I.
just exactly, and I had no confidence because it was literally beat out of me as a child, and I didn't know how to. And so when my last time that I was in prison, I did 44 months straight or 46 months or something, but I knocked off all the prescription medication and I started to exercise and to lift weights and to coach and to do things outside. And I slowly but surely saw that the way that physical exercise changed my body, then I felt better about myself, then my confidence levels were higher, and pretty soon I'm like, man, my hands aren't shaking. I'm not like having panic attacks when I get in front of people, and I'm really realizing the person that I feel that I was meant to be. And that's when I decided to write that book, Pain to Purpose, and about turning our pain into purpose. And so I read somewhere some crazy stat, Chris, that the United States of America takes 90% of the world's prescription drugs. Something just like
No kidding.
just insane. And I'm paraphrasing. It could be 80, it could be 95. Who knows? Whatever. It's way too much. And I think that big pharma in this country just throws pills at people. Open your mouth, take those, and come back in 3 months and tell us how they don't address the root problem. They just put a band-aid over it. And the root problem for me was getting to how poorly I felt about myself. And so I didn't need drugs to numb me out, to numb those pain. I needed to sit with those feelings. I needed to have people with me that cared about me enough to sit with me. And then I needed to start being proactive. And for me, that was physical fitness. And that's when my life, coupled with a few other things, really, and my spiritual growth really took off. So I can't tell anybody who's listening to this how important it is for my mental health uh, to exercise and to get out there. And like, so I'm really happy to hear you say that. I had no idea, man. So I feel good about that, to hear you say that.
You said something, and I would like your views on this as well.
Mhm.
In that moment where you are in that flow state of exercise, and I've experienced this myself, which is why I bring it up. In fact, my mother trains with me regularly, and I have to contain it. But when I get in that flow state, you and I have a friend in this, Cielo, who I said this to as well.
Oh, I love C. She's so great.
And I said this to her, and I thought this woman is going to knock me off my ass because she thinks I'm that crazy. But you almost become animalistic because you take on that side of you that feels small, that side of you that feels inferior. You almost want to grab that dark you by the throat. Would I be wrong in that summation?
No, and I'm going to tell you something. So again, and I hate to harp on the whole prison thing, but we all have a past. So years ago, when I was doing my last prison term, my wife, who I loved at the time, sent me divorce papers.
Oh
And
boy.
and I had a few more years to go until I was going to get released. Excuse me. And my mindset was, okay, I feel lower than low. And she was with some other guy, and she was a friend of mine, and or an acquaintance. And so I said, I'm going to show her, and I'm going to start lifting weights, and I'm going to get big, and I'm going to look good when I get out, and this and that. And so that I took that the way that I felt so horrible about myself by my wife divorcing me and leaving me with for another man while I was in prison. And then slowly but surely, my reasoning, uh, I guess, laterally moved from wanting to show her that I'm going to get out looking big and great to feeling great about myself and learning how to love myself and not have to lean on other people to get my feel goods, for lack of a better word.
Mm.
And so that's when I started, Chris, years ago, to understand that happiness and self confidence and things like those are intrinsic, and they start from the inside, and they work themselves, or they work from the inside out. And so it went from trying to look good for my ex-wife to really just enjoying who I am, and learning this newfound confidence, and watching this arrogance that I had to cover up all these insecurities I had about myself for so long move from arrogance to confidence. It went from me being unhealthy physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to being physically fit, to being emotionally sound, to being able to bring something to the table in a relationship. And I don't mean necessarily a romantic relationship. I mean um,
In any
platonic,
relationship, platonic and
yes,
otherwise.
platonic, other romantic, friend, just any sort of relationship. And we talked off camera, and I say, probably the thing that I value most in life are relationships. You know.
Oh yeah, it's the best commodity. But I want to relate to you to what your mindset was
Yeah.
originally.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's funny.
when I began running and I began lifting weights, you know, also had that like you attitude towards
Yeah,
everything and
man.
everybody.
Yes, yes.
And after a year of this, just to backtrack the story a little bit, the company which I work for now, the people have known me for quite a while because my mother and I work at the same firm. She's in one department, I'm in the other.
Okay.
And preceding years, I was tubby because had just gotten off drugs and alcohol. And as you know yourself,
Yes.
when you get off the booze and when you get off the
Oh boy.
substances,
Just eat
you pick
everything.
up
Sugar,
and
canned bread, anything with carbs. Just
you
yeah.
guzzle energy drinks by the
Yes.
canful. Ay, ay, ay.
By the way, anyone seeing me, if this is on YouTube, I am down to one a day. But
Oh,
I've
thank
been
you.
saying that for 7 years. I'm down to one a day.
Well, this is pure H2O. So, yeah, thank goodness. And I haven't
No,
had an
please
energy drink
go.
in a while.
Please go. I love our conversations just on air and off. So I'm always fascinated by them.
And they knew me as Tubby because,
Sure.
you pick up all the addiction weight. And
Yes, absolutely.
last year, I shed 6 pounds. No, 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 a little bit more than that, 12 pounds.
Okay.
And one of the girls who works at reception, and she's a very, very good friend, and she was also an avid runner, ran many a competition. And she looked me up and down from head to toe as I was exiting the office going to my space, and she said, "Chris, have you lost weight?"
Okay. Okay.
And
What
she's a
did you?
she's a looker, but unfortunately she's
Okay.
married, so
Yeah.
I couldn't go there,
Unfortunately. Yeah.
unfortunately. And I said, yes, I've been dedicating myself to running, and I shed over 12 pounds. And she fell flat on her face. But in that regard, I have to also relate to you as well. My mindset took a rear shift from one moment to the next. And I actually said to myself, you know what, this is a blessing.
Yes.
This is a blessing, turning that pain literally into purpose. And I'm not saying you and I are perfect now because of the work that we do. It's a continuous process, but you can agree with me. It gives us something to look forward to the
Oh,
next day.
100%. For years, all I had to look forward to was how was I going to get my next drink or my next drug, and now I don't want to steal somebody's line, but I always say create a life that you look forward to getting up in the morning to.
Mm.
you know, and
Find
and
out who you are. David Goggins said that.
exactly. Yes, David Goggins takes heat from some people, but he's a beast.
Big time.
That
Big
dude
time.
is an animal. I mean, like that guy and you saw him, his pre-transformation was a very large, tubby man, and
And had the same life that
yeah,
you and I had.
uh-huh.
Father beat him witless. Mother
Yes,
was abused.
yeah,
Endured racism in Brazil, Indiana. Took it and flipped it on its head. 6 ways to Sunday. Got his
yes.
dream to become a Navy SEAL. Passed SEAL training with injured legs.
Hmm.
Eventually advanced all the way past Army Ranger School. Ran
Hmm.
70 marathons.
Yeah, he's
Man,
insane. And what I love about Goggins is there's no excuses. Like he's like, well, so what that happened to you? Deal with it. We live in the present. Get it done. It doesn't mean like ignore what happened to us. My mother, she's my hero, Chris, and she's still with us. She's 80 years old. She's beaten 3 cancers and a whole slew of
wow.
things, but she's always like, but, and she's the leader of our family. She always has been. Father's been gone for decades.
The
Um,
Iron Maiden.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. 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 She's just amazing, and she always says, "Listen, Bo. We live in the what is. We don't live in the what if or the what has
I
been."
said to my mother the exact
You know.
same thing.
Yeah.
In my mother tongue, if is ash. If you had to
Yes.
literally, it's a dual meaning in my language.
Mm,
So if you have to say the word
okay.
if in my language, it sounds exactly as ash.
Oh, that's
I would say mom,
interesting.
and I would say mom, we don't use if because if is burnt ash.
It is burnt ash. It is. It just does not apply. And with my sister and myself, anytime that my mother would detect any sort of victimhood whatsoever, she would shut it down immediately. She'd say, "Sorry, not in this household or while you're under my roof, even as an adult visiting or whatever, we are not going to go there one iota, one shred." And she saw all the horrible stuff that
Sure.
happened in but she's just that tough of a woman that says we don't get stuck in those ways. We deal with it and we move on, and
And did
that's
she also
just
stick by you, especially when you were in prison?
no. So
Okay,
I didn't see her and she had to cut me off for her own health.
I understand.
So I went to prison 3 different times for a total of about 10 and a half years. And in 2008, Chris, she said, "Bo, I love you. You're my firstborn son or my firstborn child, but you're out of the family." I I was killing her, man. I was emotionally blackmailing her. I was always asking her for money. I was guilting her if she said no. I was just being I was deep into my addiction, not using an excuse, just providing context. I was a lousy son. She had hypertension. She had a stroke. She had already gone through. Long story short, her doctors advised her, said, "You have to cut your son off or you're going to die." And she it was a hard conversation. It was sad for me because we had it on a payphone in county jail as I was waiting to go out to the penitentiary again, where you serve years. And it turned out to be one of the greatest things for me and her too. She got healthy, I got better. We had a big reunion back in 2000, after about 12, I want to say 12, 13 years of no contact whatsoever. And man, now today we talk probably once a week, and my sister's a great friend of mine. It's just everything's just come full circle, and so
Mm,
I don't blame her for not staying with me. It was tough love, but she took a look at her son, meaning me, and saying, "Well, he's not going to change anytime soon. So why am I going to continue to let him abuse me or emotionally try to manipulate me? And why am I going to sacrifice my quality of life to put up with some kid of mine who's not grateful for anything?" And that's just who I was back then. That's not who I am now. And I think that I would like to think that it's a testament to all the good relationships I have in my life. People that have either
mm,
a stuck with
mm.
me or come back to me. But I wasn't worthy of my mother's friendship nor love back then. So
And I appreciate you saying that. It takes a man to really say that. But quickly, going back to the whole sports thing and your love of
yeah.
baseball specifically, while you were playing for the Marlins, did you ever rub shoulders with Giancarlo Stanton, righty Josh Johnson, or Mike Lowell?
Well, I no, I didn't make it to the big leagues.
Oh,
So in the United States, in Major League Baseball, they have a tiered system. So it's like, are you familiar? You like English soccer? So let's just take the English Premier League, EPL, the
yeah.
top notch. It's in Italy for whatever, any big league in the world, really. And then they have tiered levels,
Oh,
and
I
you
see.
work your
I
way up.
see.
Now, was I good enough to play at actually the highest of high levels? Absolutely. I was one of the most colossal. They call it a waste of talent of all time. But I know several guys. I'm not going to say some of their names on air because I protect their anonymity. Guys that I know in recovery that have played at the highest levels of baseball that are 14, 15,
Oh,
16 years clean and sober. There are guys. There's one guy named Brandon Puffer who's a friend of mine who played in the major leagues, played for the Giants, the Red Sox, uh, the Houston Astros. Went to prison for
oh,
for four
oh, oh,
years.
oh.
Yeah, I think he's my fourth or fifth episode of my first season. So I've
Yeah.
played with a lot of guys. With the Marlins, a guy named Ryan Dempster is a close friend of mine. I played against Alex Rodriguez in high school, who's
Oh,
arguably
my.
the top five greatest players that ever played the game of baseball. Because I went to
Yeah.
high school in Miami, Florida for a couple of years. So I've played,
Oh, I see.
and I always had big billing, so I was as good as a lot of these guys. I just had a double life, Chris, going on to where I
Of
got kicked out
course.
of high
Of
school
course.
my 12th grade, we call it a senior here in the United States, my
Senior here.
senior year of high school, I was involved in a drug deal in a suburb of Miami, Florida. I had a gun and a knife put to my head and robbed and all this other stuff. And then we went back and got some retaliation. I ended up getting kicked out of school.
Whoopsie daisy.
Whoopsie daisy, stuff like that. So my priorities were all skewed. But yes, I played with several. Stanton and those guys were after I was. Mike Stanton. His name was Mike
Okay.
back. He changed his name to Giancarlo, but his original name was Mike. I don't know if you know that. Mike
No,
Stanton.
to be
Yeah,
honest, I dug up these names for research purposes because I
that's
wanted
cool. Yeah.
to cover some of of your athletic background. Look, all transparency, my knowledge about American sports is so minute, but I'm trying my best to assimilate. I mean, let's be honest. The names that I know in baseball is, of course, please don't crucify me. Pete
No.
Rose, Cincinnati Reds,
Yeah.
Hall of Famer Greg Biggio, Hank
Greg
Greenberg.
Biggio. Hank Green.
Uh,
Geez, these are great names.
Hank Greenberg played for Philadelphia, and then another name that I got by accident, Brett Smith, who played also for Houston, but then eventually ended his career with the Giants. But how I got upon his name is I confused him with the front man of a band called Shinedown because
Oh,
his name is Brent Smith,
okay. All right. Yeah,
and
Shinedown's a good band too.
very much. And
Yeah.
Brent Smith is also involved in a solo project or an acoustic project with another gentleman by the name of Myers. So that's how I got the two confused.
There's a Brent Myers
Brett Myers.
or Brett Myers who was a great pitcher, and he plays music actually
He
too.
does. He
Yes,
does.
and
I
he's a
understand that after
musician.
he left baseball, he became a musician afterward.
Yes, he did. Big, strong guy. Played for the Phillies, like you said, Philadelphia, and a few other clubs. We tend as Americans to think that we're the only planet on Earth sometimes. I mean, I'm not going to deny that. So we sort of insulate ourselves over here, and then the
You
rest of the
guys
world does.
raised me. You guys raised me.
I
No
mean,
criticism from me.
so I'm criticizing my own country, even though I'm an unabashed patriot of the United States.
Patriotic AF, my friend.
Yes, AF and then some. But I will say, we tend to think that we exist on an island and everyone else needs to. But so American sports, we a lot of Americans don't understand rugby, cricket, football, just more worldwide sports. But baseball is a beautiful sport. It's similar to cricket, I guess. I don't want to say it's an offshoot. It's a
It
different sport,
is
but
with a little bit
there's
of difference.
similarities.
And there's also, if you will believe it or not, there's an unbelievable similarity between American football and rugby.
Oh,
The only
huge,
difference is
huge.
the only difference is with rugby, you don't wear cleats, you don't wear that huge uh, chest plate, I think you call it, and you don't wear the helmet, but you wear a
Yeah.
headband for in case you hit someone on the head. And I mean, I've seen rugby players literally go head on when they go into
Oh,
the ruck. They split their head open six love. But
I've
of
seen
course,
it.
in that moment, you are so full of adrenaline and you're so full of testosterone. You just want to take the guy down six love to get the ball and then hop to his end of the street.
I think it's a great game, and I like how rugby's free flowing. It's not as stop, start, stop, start. There is some, but I've seen guys, come out of the scrum or whatever, with just black eyes, and and like you said, heads split apart. The athletes in the United States when they in National Football League, they're huge and they're fast, and they're the greatest athletes on
Big
planet
time.
Earth naturally. And I don't mean to offend anybody by saying this, just they're the biggest and the strongest and the fastest, and
Hey, let
so
me
you
meet
need
you halfway.
pads. You need pads to play in the NFL, or you
One of
would
the
just
great
die.
legends of football, you can't deny Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah, of course, and he's a fantastic radio, TV guy, and he's a quarterback.
Unbelievable sense for
But
unbelievable sense of humor and
oh,
so
he's so
down to
funny,
earth.
and horrible mental health issues that he's dealt with over the years. I'm not
He
sure
did.
he's
He
overcome.
did
You know?
so much, and he took it
Yeah,
with honor. I learned about Terry Bradshaw in 2006 in a movie called Failure to Launch with Matthew McConaughey,
that's a great movie.
and
He
so
played the
funny.
dad, right? He played
He
the
played the
crazy dad.
dad
Yeah,
with Kathy Bates, held his own, and I just thought, he's like a comedy actor. But when I read up that he played for I think he played for Philadelphia,
Pittsburgh,
Pittsburgh
same
for the
state.
Pittsburgh
Yeah.
Steelers, and unbelievable caps,
Mhm.
and never took. I'd like to think he never took credit that he had become a legend. In later
Well,
years, he was very much a down home guy.
he played with such a wonderful team, a bunch of great guys and guys that were in this country at the top of sports. They get enshrined in what's called the Hall of Fame, and
Yeah.
that's for the the greatest of the great. And so the Pittsburgh Steelers of the '70s, arguably, my team is the New England Patriots. Here's that. We Tom Brady and 6 Super Bowls, but the two greatest franchises are the Steelers and the Patriots as far as winning wise. And he's a humble guy. He was a great quarterback, but he played with so many great players. So yeah,
And
I
let
love
me
world
add
sports and I
something.
love U.S. sports too. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
With the New England Patriots, do they play out of Boston?
They play out of a town called Foxborough, which is about 30-40 minutes outside of Boston. So essentially
Okay.
Boston, yes.
Very much Irish.
A lot of Irish. Used to be really tough Irish in that town, and now it's like you ever heard of Southie? People refer to Southie. It's a part of
Oh
town,
yeah,
South
absolutely.
Boston, and it was growing, and so earlier, Whitey Bulger and all those gangsters and all the
Mhm.
Irish growing up, but now it's all gentrified and people don't really like it so much. But it's Starbucks and hippies and or not hippies,
Well, I mean,
Starbucks and
it's the same here in South Africa, especially where I come from in
yeah,
Gauteng. It's become so commercial. I just want to stick my head
yeah,
in a hole and roll a rock over it.
because it's got such
I hear exactly what you're
the
saying.
Irish are such wonderful people and loyal and hard workers, and they've built such a strong community as they've immigrated to this country and went through hell
Absolutely.
and back, just to become Americans. And some of their culture they feel has been kind of stolen from them over the years as far as the gentrification of the city of Boston. But it's very tough Irish still, the city. Yes.
Well, look how they stood together when the Boston Marathon occurred with those bombings.
It's just
Everyone came together. No political
everybody,
bias,
black,
no
white,
nonsense. Everyone came together and
Irish,
said, listen, how are we going to
Republican,
sort this
Democrat.
out?
How are we going to do this? And then we had the city's biggest sports star, David Ortiz, who was a Dominican, who played baseball. His nickname is Big Poppy. He went on the mic and a couple days after the bombings and said, "This is our effing city," and it's a very seminal moment in Boston history. And the Red Sox had kind of an average team that year, and they went on to win the World Series. So they were spurred on by. I get goosebumps right now thinking about it. They were spurred on by the deaths at the marathon bombing and just how it affected the
Mm,
city. And now you see cities around the world saying something strong, like let's just say like London Strong, or if something bad happens. But that all
sure,
originated from Boston Strong. So
I
they started
understand
saying
that.
Boston Strong, and so it went from there. And Boston's a very, very working, grab your lunch pail, working class, strong, um, very tough city, very family oriented, and it's a deep root to Irish people. There's a lot of Italians, a lot of just strong immigrants.
Very much. You talk about something, and I've never had the courage to say it up until now. And if you allow me to verbal process before we get back on track, my mother and I are pro American.
Mm,
I've been because not just of what I saw on television for what we got from the States, my education when I pursued a diploma in my initial career field was American made. And it instilled in me, you guys owe me diddly squat,
yeah,
diddly, nothing. But that you guys literally came over to my country to teach me about this and the pride of striving for something where the reach is beyond your grasp. That always stuck with me. And that's why I got the bug to learn about
sure,
American culture and American history. I'm not that fluent, let me be honest, but I strive to respect that because let me be honest, I criticize South Africa on this show all the time. And I'll let you in a little secret. I have had very few people who have taken me out on it on social media because I'd like to think they agree with me.
mm,
But taking the story, what you've mentioned now with what happened in 2013, it reminds me of one of the most tragic modern tragedies, 9/11.
mm.
I
Yeah.
was 8 or 9 years old when we saw 9/11 occur
Yeah.
on television.
I
CNN,
watched
we
it.
get here.
I watched the second
Um,
second plane go into the tower. I was
that's
28 at
exactly
the time, but I saw
that
the
was
second
exactly what I
plane.
wanted to
Uh-huh.
say. The
Yep.
second plane went through the tower on live television on
Yes,
CNN,
live. Yep. Hmm.
and that
Saddest
scarred
day.
me.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Kevin Conroy, who you might not know by name, he was
I
the voice
don't.
of Batman when I was a child, and
Okay.
he volunteered to help out at Ground Zero at the Jacob Javits Center as a cook to
Mhm.
to help all New York's finest and the firemen,
Sure.
give them their food. And speaking of it, where he did the Batman voice for the emergency personnel and how everyone
Okay.
started to laugh and come together in the face of a horrible tragedy, the pride of being an American,
Yeah.
that stuck with me.
Boy, I
And
sure
sure,
missed it.
sure, that's that's just one opinion. That's just one
No,
opinion.
if I could jump in real quick,
Sure,
that's a
I
great
finished my
opinion,
sentence.
and but one of the things you'll hear a lot of Americans say nowadays is we wish we could go back to September 12th, 2001, and that's when the country was completely unified. I mean, still in America, you see U.S. flags all over the place, and people are patriotic still. But we are such a nation that's divided now, and I'm not going to get into the politics of why and my opinions on why.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
but there are still a lot of us who believe, and I'm probably people are going to roll their eyes when I say this, but we believe in American exceptionalism. I certainly do. I believe in exceptionalism from other countries too, of course, but I'm an American, so I'm going to speak first and foremost about my own country. Um, I think that that's a uniquely American way of thinking because of maybe the Revolutionary War that we we said we're not going to be taxed and we're going to boot these people out who have control over us, and that's just kind of who Americans have always been. We've just been this kind of underdog that said we're not taking your shit for lack of a better word. um,
Absolutely.
has that morphed into something that's unhealthy over the years? Somewhat, yeah. It's different, but do you
Maybe.
know what I mean by going maybe not exactly, but do you know what I mean by a lot of us wish we could go back to September 12th, 2001? And what I mean by that is that it's such a horrible day of the events of 9/11, but 9/12 was when this country was probably the most unified it's ever been, save for
It
maybe
forgot
World
about its
War II.
differences. It forgot
Yeah,
about
yes,
opinions. There was no such thing as political correctness. Everyone came
and
together and they uttered the
yes,
words, "We will never forget."
but the problem is that so many have forgotten nowadays, and that's college campuses in the U.S. are just bastions of trash. I'm sorry I said it, and I stand by
I'll
that.
meet you halfway.
Yeah,
You and I were talking about this off air. Today's Afrikaners don't know who they are. They want to follow the new Hollywood ideal, glamorized and cosmopolitan. They want to follow
yes,
a detrimental, in my opinion, publicity figure, adopt their mannerisms, adopt their way of speaking.
yeah,
We spoke about this off air as well. My dad is an army vet as well. Served 13 years as a provisionary officer locally and in Angola when the Angola War was at its rifest. Served in
yes.
Operation Thunder Chariot 1983 or 1987. We were 71 Motor Brigade, and they fought for us. But when they came back, they were just literally treated like, okay, you went over, you fought for us. Now what? And
Sad. Yeah.
so many people came back from the border, much like with what happened in Vietnam, and I'm sure a lot of vets who came back from Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran, who had come home with such bad battle shock, or shell shock, I should rather say. That's the correct
Uh-huh.
term, the shell shock. And to this day, I've encountered people who have been in Angola who still have shell shock, and they burst into tears and they almost convulse with emotion. And I still take time whenever I see people in my local supermarket wearing a uniform, take them aside and thank them.
Yeah.
And it's sad because what you have expounded upon subtly is here in South Africa happening full force. And I can't mesh with that mentality as an individual. Yes, I'm just one of a flood of opinions. But
Mm.
where do you separate opinion from fact? And that's a conversation for another day. I hear you in that regard.
Yeah, it's tough. It's the way that the United States, our government has treated our veterans has been pretty pitiful over the years, especially the Vietnam veterans. It's gotten better, but still, it's the Veterans Administration hospital, or the way that the veterans are it's pretty subpar. It's very
Mm,
socialized medicine, and it's very substandard, and there's long lines, and the quality of. I'm not on here to talk about socialized medicine versus privatized, but what I will
naturally.
say is that the government, the medical system in the United States for veterans is completely subsidized and by the government, and it's socialized medicine, and it is substandard, and it is
Yeah.
terrible
Yeah.
wait lines, and people die all. It's just not a good situation. So I mean,
Sure.
I'll just leave it at that. But yes, no, I understand, and shell shock, we call it post traumatic stress disorder.
Of
Uh,
course.
Same thing. The name's evolved, but
Just the name that's changed.
the
I
condition
mean,
is the same.
we used to talk about suicidal tendencies. Now it's suicidal ideations.
Yeah,
Same thing, just
it's the
different
same
wording.
thing. Just trying to make it
Whatever.
softer, in this little more PC world we live in. But yeah, it's a sad thing, But I just realized a while
Dog my
back
cats.
I can control what I can control, and don't
Mm.
let the uh the exterior stuff get to me too much. So
But thank you for allowing me to verbal process. Now, bringing it back to the conversation,
yeah, sorry we get
tell me,
sidetracked.
but I love it. That's what makes a conversation. And I mean, you're so knowledgeable and so humble, and you're a no bullshit guy. There, I said it. You're a no bullshit guy.
Well, I found a
T-
long time ago that didn't get me anywhere. So I appreciate that, Chris. But I'm all ears right
tell
now.
tell me, how did you eventually decide that you now? Let's not forget, you're a fantastic public speaker as well.
Thank you.
T- take me from the time where you decided to start writing your own book.
Yeah, gosh, I'd probably say 2020. Um, I started feeling this call of first time in my life. I'd gotten out of prison recently, 5 6 years ago, and I had felt this internal intrinsic uh, purpose in my life of
Hmm.
helping people. And it sounds generic, but I started helping guys in prison find their footing, and gain confidence. And I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but there's just ways that I
Sure.
playing athletics, coaching them. There's always in prisons. There's always these big, strong. It's this macho community. There's fightings, there's stabbings, there's hierarchy, there's gangs, there's racial strife, there's everything. And so you're either apex predator to steal, or you're
Alpha male.
yes, or you're the minnow that's going to be swallowed up. So on the teams, we'd play soft baseball, football, soccer, because there's a lot of big Hispanic contingent of men in prison, United States, that love to play soccer, and it's in their heritage, and it was a lot of fun. But anyways, long story short, I would always be asked to play on the teams that were very dominant, and I would say, well, nah, I don't want to do that, because it's just boring to me to beat up on a bunch of guys who don't know how to play. So I would go coach these band of misfits, for lack of a better word, and teach them how to play. And when I would teach them how to play properly, I would see their self-confidence get better, and I would see their performance on the rec yard, like, it translated into everything in their life. And so they became less meek and more confident, and they just and when I realized I had a hand in transforming these guys into feeling better about themselves, I realized that I was feeling better about myself, and it was a win-win. So to answer your question, that was a little long-winded. I found
Nice.
my purpose. My purpose was to impart my knowledge of what my skill set is on other people, to help people get better. And that's when I decided to start writing books. I've been writing a second one now.
Oh
Don't know when it's
yeah.
going to. Yeah, it's just kind of under wraps, but it's. I think
Of
it's going to be
course.
neat. I'm excited about it, but I love the first one. Proud of it. I put a lot of work into it, and things just went from there, man. I'd always been a guy my whole life who lied, and who said stuff to cover up because I felt poorly about myself. So I didn't want people to understand that I really maybe wasn't the guy who I looked like or who I sounded like, but I didn't want to get found out. We call it in prison term, I didn't want my covers pulled,
Yeah,
which
we call it
means
imposter syndrome.
is
You don't want to
exactly
suffer from imposter
that's
syndrome.
yeah, exactly. So, but there came a point in time where I just didn't give a shit anymore. Sorry, pardon my French, but pardon moi français. Oui, je parle français un peu. I don't know if you knew that, but
Yeah, it's an education.
a little bit, a little bit French. But I just, man, I stopped caring, man. I mean, I care what people think, obviously, but I don't. It just didn't be my end all be all. It didn't be who I
Mm.
was. It wasn't my identity of what people thought about me, because I knew if I'm doing the right thing, then there's always going to be people that hate you or hate on you, or haters they call them. You know what? They don't even bother me anymore. Whatever. So
Would you say that your time in prison coaching fellow inmates in sports would have been a perfect springboard for you to starting your own coaching business?
at the time,
Having
it
that
would have.
having had that experience now, do you think it helped you become a coach that you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always enjoyed doing the sports coaching and working with folks like that, because I always love seeing people evolve and get better. Oh, excuse me,
Go for it.
pardon me. And
Not at all.
but I think that it's made me more understanding. It's made me, I think the way that I felt about myself, how poorly I felt about myself growing up, and even as into an adult, and then the metamorphosis of who I think I've become has made me more has given me more impetus to want to give other men that same feeling. So definitely, the it set the stage. When I was in prison, it was kind of like a primer, for the real world to getting out.
Mm,
But definitely, I don't think I feel like I do a good job today with guys. I don't work with women, on the coaching aspect. There's just too many too many
sure.
complications that arise for that. I think that women should work with women and men should work with men, and that's
Very
my own
mature.
philosophy. I'm not
It's a
telling
very
anyone
mature
else
thing
how
to
to
say,
how to
and I
run
agree
their
with you.
business. Yeah, just there's just
I
a lot
agree
of
with you.
things that can arise. I think it's given me more patience, and I think it's given me more skills, and it's yeah, I think it's helped me definitely. So I don't look back on anything in my life, Chris, and say, God, I wish that hadn't happened. The only things that I regret are some of the hurt that I put on people. Leaving my children without a father. Yeah, of course I regret that. I would not be human if I didn't regret that. But I think that everything worked out the way it's supposed to be.
Mm,
And today I'm firing on all cylinders, and really 2025 is going to be a fantastic year. I'm so looking forward to it, because I'm just putting a lot of things in place this year, and I'm using all the skills that I've gotten out of the negative experiences in my life as far as the positive ones, and just I always tell people I'm grateful for it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the Clint Eastwood gratitude list.
and I think what separates you from other people is that you keep an open mind.
I
That's what I
have.
was trying to allude to off camera, or a little early in the conversation. You had all of this happen to you, and now you've got all these exciting opportunities blossoming, opening up for you. You didn't ask for it, I'm sure. It's almost like it happened kismet, but you're not taking it like, look at me, I've got the big Superman badge on my shirt. I'm going to be everyone's saving grace. You literally have the mindset of, I've been given these gifts. I better look after it responsibly because it's not for me. This is for someone else.
I know how quick it can disappear too.
Oh, thank you for mentioning
Yeah,
it.
I mean, but for the grace of God go I. I always say that, and I always think that, and yes, I've been down some pretty horrible paths in my life, as have many. So you'll never hear me act like, oh, I'm the only one who's had a tough time. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Mm,
However, I'm very grateful for like I said, the tough times, the good times. I think it shaped me as who I am as a man, as a brother, a son, a father, a grandfather. Just I talked about relationships with people that I did not have. Um, and like I just said, I know how quick it can go. I can
sure.
lose it like that. So I don't want to lose it. So therefore, I do I do the things to keep it. But no, I'm not a puff my chest up, look at me
No.
type. Never. never. That is
Never
very
ever.
that's an unattractive quality in humans to me. That I saw that as growing up through my father, and I've done everything in my power not to be like him. Have I made horrible mistakes in life? Obviously, with the drinking and the drugging and all that kind of stuff. But I will never be accused of being like that man by
Sure.
anybody who knows me.
Sure.
And that's probably the thing that I'm most proud of. And sorry to bash him. I shouldn't be bashing him. I'm
No, you're not bashing him. You were
he's
just
just yeah, he's just somebody I never wanted to be like, and I'm not like. Even through my struggles and trials and tribulations and things I've done, I've never behaved like him, and I never will. So
and that's humble of you to say because you're actually saying that as an act of forgiveness. You know, there's
yeah,
righteous anger and then there's anger. The difference between righteous anger is with the first mentioned, you allow your anger to exist for just a mere moment, but you don't verbal process to such an extent that you
yeah,
curse them. That's a lesson that I had to learn as well with my own dad. He walked out on me in my 20s when I just finished college. And when I got sober, you know, you can agree with me on this. All these bad memories came flooding back like a tidal wave. And
yes,
I had a very hard time to reconcile that. But there comes a point where, quoting you, you have to let go and you have to make it a mission to better yourself.
yeah, absolutely. And I talk about forgiving people. I have to forgive people for myself and for my own sanity. I can't just walk around upset at everyone, pissed off, over things that I can't
Never.
control anymore. My mother wouldn't let me do that anyways. I told you about my mom, and she's the
Kudos to the Iron Maiden.
yeah the Iron Maiden. I always yeah I think of Thatcher when you say that, Margaret Thatcher. It kind of reminds me of her a little bit. But I can't walk around if we're all in the helping business, a lot of us in this community, and yourself and myself, and how am I going to be any good to somebody if I'm sitting here talking about forgiving people, but inside I'm all mad and angry at somebody and I refuse to let go. I mean, that's just hypocritical. I can't do that. So yeah, it's a selfish reason why I've forgiven. I probably haven't forgotten, but I've just come to a point of ambivalence. I
Mm,
don't. It's just
mm.
not a thing anymore. Done a lot of work on myself. Done a lot of work on forgiveness of other people. If I've done a lot of things, Chris, in my life where I've been shown grace by other people. So if I'm going to be shown grace by other people, I certainly have to extend it to others as well. So
Sure. And it shows. It shows. And this serves as a perfect segue as we begin to wind down. Again, I need to verbal process. Remember when you did that baseball commentary? I think it was for a college baseball game. You were in the announcer's booth. What were my words to you? Do you remember?
was it a hockey or was it baseball? I can't. I used to do a lot of.
One of the two.
I can't. No, I don't remember. Refresh me. Now I feel like a jerk. I should.
No, 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 no.
I
It was
should know.
a it was a college game I know expressly for either hockey or for baseball, and you were in the announcer's booth, and my
Yeah.
words to you were, I said to you, you are going to make a career with your mouth. Now
Yeah.
you've got your own podcast. Talk about a full circle moment.
It
Okay,
completely full
ego
circle. Yeah.
ego fed,
Oh
but
man. Bless your
having
heart,
your own
man.
show,
Sorry. Go
having your
ahead,
own
Chris.
show. I must really say you blew me away when you began the Beau Payne show. You're such a natural conversationalist. Um, I love the way that you approach these guys. Sure, you are a humble guy in the midst of the show, but when you are doing the show, and I'm not blowing smoke up your trousers, this is really what I'm experiencing with the Beau Payne show. You actually show an unlocked empathy, a hidden empathy that comes to the surface when you talk to these guys. Do you really show them that love when you have them on the air?
I do. I do. A lot of the guys that I have on the air, I thought about starting to call this my show True Redemption, because these guys they've had just public, huge falls of great falls from grace, in front of so many people. I have had some massive falls from grace in front of a lot of, publicly too. Um, so I love the human spirit. I love people that are tough and fall down seven, get up eight. I have been somebody who's been kicked around a lot of my life and told that I was ugly and no good and worthless and could never do it, and stuff like that. And so I relate to a lot of people who have had struggles like that as well. So I just want people to know that they're not alone. And nothing is there's nothing on planet Earth until we're dead that we can't come back from, you know. And so I just yeah, I remember you telling me that. I do. And it was a hockey game. I was in the booth in Boise, Idaho, calling a college game, but it was this big fancy night. It was a weird night where we had the whole place packed, and there were like 5 or 6 thousand people in the stands, and I was a public address announcer, and it was so much fun. And they were doing the whole
Yeah,
YMCA, and I just, that's my element. I love it, and I'm enjoying doing the show. We're just about ready to wrap up season one with 15 episodes. Like I said, I'm hoping you'll come on. I've asked you,
absolutely.
to kickstart us off first few episodes in season two. But it's just so much fun for me to talk to people from different walks of life, not just athletes who have just
Sure.
just redemption stories, and obviously it's recovery themed and recovery based, but it's not just limited to. Um, so we're going to take it hopefully to higher heights, bigger heights, newer places in season two, and we're just having a great time with it. So.
Absolutely. But you've got one thing that can't be taught in that show. You've got a skill set that can't be taught. You're curious and you listen to your people while you're talking to them. You know, I've certainly been the big perpetrator in this mistake. You get an interview going, it's got a nice flow going to it, and you want to impress the person to not look like a complete buffoon, and then you completely overtake the interview, and then you actually end up with a crap product. But with you, you listen so attentively, you take in what they say, you show them the empathy, but then you actually come back with a great either response to assimilate with them, or you come up with a great next question. No broadcasting school can teach you that. Not Don Martin, not what's this other school that I read about? Um, yeah, like the Don Martin School, or even the
Sure.
college that I went to. No one can teach that, and you've got that.
Well, I appreciate it. I was kind of sitting here thinking, man, I kind of spoke over Chris a little bit on this interview. But sometimes when I'm speaking with somebody like you, who I admire, who's also a friend, it gets exciting talking with somebody, and you want to jump in and say, man, I understand and I get it. And you want to just have, and sometimes it's a dance that I guess you learn to perfect over time. And
Thank you for saying that.
yeah,
Thank you for saying that, because that's an interview. It's a dance. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3,
absolutely.
and that you can't teach. No, really, I really love what you've made with the Beau Payne Show. If you haven't heard it, ladies and gentlemen, you are missing out. It's the Beau Payne Show, quite simple to follow. Check it out. 15 episodes in season one. Great guests, including our mutual friend Dr. Rob Kelly of the Rob Kelly Recovery Group, or rather, the Rob Kelly Group had a name change a year or so ago. Beau really knocks it out of the park. He's curious. He is humble. He talks about, as we said, about recovery based. And what I love about the show as well is it's not preachy. It's a Q&A, and people can already realize the theme of the show from the offset, but it flows so naturally. It's like a coffee chat between two friends.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I want to say this real quick about the show, Chris, and I've told you this. My goal of the show is just great conversations with really interesting people, and we just kind of let her flow where it goes, and organically, and where it ends up, and it always ends up having to be a nice conversation. And I'm glad you said it wasn't preachy, because I certainly don't ever want that show to come off preachy. People are entitled to anything they want to say, their own opinions. Um, you won't have a lot of pushback on me. You will have me ask questions into what's the thinking behind that, and things like this. But yeah, we just have great conversations, and people that have been through the ringer, so to speak. So yeah, we're having a great time doing it. And season two is going to be a lot of fun too.
And I can't wait for it. One final question before we bid each other farewell until the next time. Think about Bob Uecker, Red Barber, Vin Scully, Ken Levine. Can
Ooh.
we can we expect Beau Payne in the Rogues Gallery of announcers, maybe in the
Well,
foreseeable future?
gosh, I sometimes think I got such a late start on things because I was busy. I was, so when I was running the streets, when I was in my 20s, I would do a lot of commercials and stuff like that, and some voiceover stuff, and even some real shitty modeling type stuff, and when I had hair, just 30 years ago, just to get a paycheck so I could go spend it on booze or whatever. So I think I got a late start on things. Vin Scully is the gold standard of American sports broadcasting. He's heroic to many, many, many of us. So I don't know. Shoot, man, I would really, really love this, my show, because I really believe in my message, and I believe in my guest message. We have a lot of fun and we laugh and we joke about it, but we also have a very serious underside to it too. And that's showing people, men and women of any age, creed, sex, color, what have you, that no matter how far down you've been in life, man, you can always make today the first day of the rest of your life. And that's the message that I and my guests want to convey to other people. So where that ends up, I don't know. I We'll see. But I have a great producer. She's a good friend of mine. She's got a great story too. And for now, we're having a lot of fun. I've made mistakes the first season, but we all make mistakes and getting better
Yes,
at it.
learning curve.
Yeah, learning curve, man, and just having fun. Vin Scully, I don't know. I was probably out of my reach, but maybe I'll create my own statue someday.
You never know. And folks, that brings it to the end of the episode. Bo, I really want to thank you for this conversation. It really went in a direction I wasn't expecting. Congratulations on all that you've achieved, man, on the book, on your coaching group. Tell me quickly, where can people get in touch with you if they are looking to book an appointment?
Sure. I recovery coaching has kind of become a passion of mine just because of the helping aspect. So, Sober Bo Official on Instagram, and you can shoot me a DM there. You can shoot me an email at the Beau Payne Show at gmail.com, or you can go to my website, just simply beaupayne.com, and there's coaching links there where you can shoot me an email to, or a link or a DM. So several ways. You can just Google my dumb butt on Google, and it'll bring up ways to get in touch with me. And but on real, I would love anybody out there listening. If you feel like you're struggling, I would absolutely love to help you, and at least to sit down and maybe have a meet. So I don't charge anything just to sit and talk and to see where we could go, because I've certainly had a ton of help in my life, and I feel it necessary to extend that help to others. So.
And I'd also like to personally thank you for the investment that you have made in me as a man, in recovery, in my mental health, in my standing as a man, and really in your own way, just by being who you are,
That's
forcing
high.
me to get out of my comfort zone and embrace the unknown. You're a friend dozen and a true boulevardier. I lift my hat to you, and I'm proud to call you my friend B.
Likewise, Chris. Thank you so much. It's been a great time.
It's only a pleasure, Bubba. And with that, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Be like Bo, be like me, be like everyone else who's trying to better themselves, to becoming an unbreakable mind, an unstoppable force, an untamed spirit, your own army of one, an apex predator. Folks, we'll talk again in the foreseeable future. God bless one and all.